guys. This is the first time that I actually get to get on the board in the in what we'll call the white space. So our first conversation is something that I get to talk about that I was told I was in, and I believe is talked about completely incorrectly. And the best analogy of what we're going to talk about is something that was done years ago about the hot crazy matrix. It was actually done here in Brentwood, Tennessee, as well as this conversation being done in Brentwood, Tennessee. But I want to talk about the spectrum. Now, you might hear people talk about, oh, you're in the spectrum based on a diagnosis of being ADD, ADHD, Asperger's, autism, and such. That's not the spectrum. Here's the truth. Everybody's in the spectrum. The question is where you are and how it applies to your life and what you're going to do with or about it. And if you're someone or you have a child that is in specific areas that may be diagnosed with something because of where they fall in this entire spectrum, what you might do with it, because, well, there's a lot to learn. So, first, we have the chart, right? And this graph, and it's not a graph, what would you call this? I remember what you call it. It's a chart. You get your x-axis, your y-axis, so you have high and low, and then when we look at the spectrum, you have invalid to idiot savant, right? So this is the entire spectrum. This is everyone. The question is, where are you falling it? To give you a scenario, if we look at high or low functioning, if we go to this area, you could say someone like Joe Biden is a low functioning invalid, right? Because he's kind of not there anymore, and if he strings together a couple words, he might poop his pants. So you don't want to be there. If you go to the other end of the spectrum, you have an idiot savant, which in most instances are people that are so smart, sometimes across the board intelligent, sometimes truly beyond genius in specific areas, but they're not able to function in humanity because of how their brain functions. So I'm going to give you an example of an idiot savant that is high functioning. Happens to be Dr. Rom. So up here, you have the epitome of an individual that is an idiot savant, but she's high functioning. But here's the secret in this. You might be a genius or a savant or an idiot savant in some things, but you might be low functioning in others. Like spatial awareness is something that Christina doesn't have very good. Most of the time, the most common thing I hear from her is, I can't find my phone, because those things don't process for her. So the important part in understanding this spectrum is that you will have some areas where you fall into a category, and then you might have other areas where you're completely different. So it's not that you're just in one box, right? Because we're humans. We're not made to be put in a box. We are this amazing bundle of energy and quantum divine creation that encompasses the physical, the spiritual, the psychological, and the emotional all simultaneously. So let's look at the full breadth of what the spectrum looks like and how you can apply it. So if we go towards the cool end of the spectrum, if we pushed all the way to the edge and said, okay, what's the epitome of the right side? You go idiot savant, savant, genius, intelligent, smart, and in the middle, you have aware. And then as you go towards the other end, the lower functioning side, you have ignorant, dumb, stupid, idiots, and an invalid. Now, when you look at the term ignorant, dumb, and stupid, right, this applies to different things. If you're ignorant to something, you're just not aware. You don't know. Now, that can float into being dumb. The cool part is if you're dumb, you can learn, right? You learn a couple things. You might still be ignorant on some subjects, but you can start to learn things. Now, if you're stupid, Ron White said you can't fix stupid. And that's very, very true in many things. And that's why rednecks are so applied to certain areas of this chart that make it hilarious. But even the people that you might think are stupid in some things will be genius in others. Because this is what makes us special. Because each one of us is an imperfect piece to a perfect puzzle. Right? You have to find out where you fit in. But as we look at the terms that people use as the spectrum, I want to talk about ADD, ADHD, autism, and Asperger's, right? Because this is a big topic of conversation. And if you've been told you're in the spectrum, congratulations, you're closer to genius and savant and idiot savant than most, right? Because that's what makes us unique. Now, if you have a child that has been diagnosed with autism, I'm going to show you how this goes. Because mercury is the primary source of disruption and dysbiosis that leads to the brain and neurological chaos that causes the symptomology that leads to a diagnosis of all of these issues, whether it's ADD, ADHD, Asperger's, autism, all of them. It goes back to mercury, and then the cascade of all the stuff that goes from this. But in the cases of autism, you're going to have kids that are in the genius area. In some aspects, they're low functioning. They might not be able to communicate because there's basically a glass wall that's built up, but they're freaking geniuses. Now, if you talk to parents that have kids, and I spend a lot of time doing this, I have over the last 20 years with my focus in environmental toxicology and working with parents who have kids that are in that aspect of this entire spectrum. So we're going to put autism, Asperger's. If you talk to a parent that's got a kid that's been diagnosed with these things, one of the most important questions to ask them is, great, what are your kids' gifts? Where's their area of genius? Because it's all there. And the interesting aspect of how the brain remaps based on blockages and the tau that builds up in a young brain because of the mercury and aluminum and lead that's been in them either from conception or injection or environment, which usually is a combination of all of those. Parents will know where their kid's genius is, but they also know where the blockage is. Well, the amazing part is if you remove the blockage, you take these kids from being low functioning up into this area. So then they're high functioning and they're able to start unlocking the true gifts that they have. Now, if you're ADD, ADHD, you might be in these areas, right? You're high functioning, but you have a hard time dealing with the environment because your brain has so much capacity and functions so much faster than the rest of society, because most people, the average American, functions somewhere in this environment. So you can start to see the disconnect that the average American, the medical establishment, is ignorant, right? Because they're only taught very small things. So they're smart in some aspects, but they're ignorant to many things. And they're looking at everyone over here going, there's something wrong with you because you're not like us. The problem is, they need to be more like you, only the best version of themselves, so the key is getting there. So you have society that's on the left side, maybe sometimes in the middle of the curve, a little bit above average, a little bit below average in their functioning. But they look at those that are high functioning in other areas and say, well, you don't fit our model, therefore you're different and you have a problem. And that's not the case. So the key in this is understanding where you sit, how you're structured currently, where your gifts are, because as my favorite philosopher wrote, that we are each an imperfect piece to a perfect puzzle. Now, the layout and the construction of your piece is going to have different dots and different connection points all through this chart. Because some areas you're going to be ignorant. Some areas you might be stupid. Some areas you're going to be a freaking genius on. So this is what makes us unique. It's what makes us special. And as we work to become our best piece, it's what allows us to find our connection points. Right? This is the way God intended the puzzle to be made. And this also builds in the flaw. What if all of us that are over here actually listened to those that are here that are telling us, oh, you need to be like us. So you need to take these medications. You need to take these amphetamines, these drugs, these SSRIs, these chemicals that are meant to dumb us down, literally, that keep us from functioning the way that we are. What's going to happen with humanity? Well, we're screwed because we're taking away the genius in society that can actually help us move forward if we do the parts to allow them to become the best versions of themselves, while everyone over here works to move to be the best versions of themselves as well. I didn't hit on a separate class of people that fall within the chart but actually aren't on this chart. So you can see over here, there's a separate box. This separate box that is not measurable on the rest of the chart is psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists. Why are they not here on the rest of the chart? Because they feed on everybody else that falls in the spectrum, right? So this process of understanding how this scope goes in has been built from spending time with some of our colleagues that are considered celebrities, that are considered savant level artists. It could be an actor, it could be a comedian, it could be a musician, right? The people that we see as a personification of greatness in some aspects that we put on a pedestal because of their gifts and their talents. The key in this is knowing you might have specific gifts that make you insanely talented. You might be insanely high functioning in your left brain, which they might clinically diagnose you as being ADD or ADHD, but your brain's functioning allows your brain to function so fast that you have a different perspective on humanity, and you can provide a level of commentary that the rest of the population finds to be absolutely hilarious. That might make you a comedian. That might make you an actor. But that level of genius or savant might leave deficits in other aspects socially, or from a business standpoint, you might not understand some things. And these narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths are going to take advantage of this. Now, you can look at most actors, most musicians, and a lot of other talent, like comedians and such, and you're going to very quickly identify their talent and their gifts, right? Where their genius, where their savant level. One of the biggest actors of my generation is a gentleman by the name of Tom Cruise. You might know his name. You might have seen some of his work. Did you know he's dyslexic? Think about that. So, he's up here and things that he can do, but when it comes to reading and translating and interpreting stuff, actually kind of stupid because of how his brain works. Now, given that dichotomy of genius and lacking in some areas, would that lead someone who is dyslexic into needing assistance in interpreting a contract or having someone manage those things for him? And could that put him in a position where someone else or a group of people might take advantage of his certain set of skills and talents, and under management actually take advantage of him? Maybe we could see that in other areas of artistry. Maybe you take, one of the most dynamic artists of the last 15 years, and I have to thank Dave Chappelle for his introduction of this individual to us long ago. His name was Kanye West. And you look at Kanye and people go, that guy's a freaking genius. But if you were to sit down with him and someone knew him, you'd say that he's autistic. But socially, there's other things that he's a little bit slower on, or he doesn't process some things because he's having his wife stand naked on the red carpet and not understanding what that's doing to her because it doesn't resonate with him. He's looking at one aspect of how he's going to market that, but he didn't take into account, because he doesn't have the ability to take into account the social aspects or the emotional aspects of what he's actually doing to his wife. Now, people that are in this box over here portray him as being completely uncontrollable and crazy. Well, what happens when you try to shackle a genius? What happens if someone tried to shackle Secretariat? There's going to be issues. This is what we're dealing with in society, is you have a group of these psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists that are controlling the strings on much of society because their nature allows them to do things that the rest of us are not willing to do because of our moral code, our ethics, and our compass spiritually. They don't have those, and they feed on the rest of the system. This is the point of us taking these things back and understanding where we sit, who we are, and how this should be done, and not falling prey to the box. This is the spectrum.